I never know when it actually starts recording. Happy Tuesday, everybody. If you can see me or hear me, it's Tuesday, 21st day of July. It's day, I don't even know what, of quarantine. How's it going? It's episode 15 of our little chat series called Both Laugh, the Dying Scene Quarantine Chats. I'm really excited to have Brian McTernan on today. Hey, Mosquito. Brian McTernan has produced like 800 of my favorite albums through over the years. I see Be Well Hardcore has joined. So if that's you, Brian, just hit the little request button. If there is no request button, there it is. Let's see. And every single time, I know I say this every week. Hey, there's Brian.
Hi.
How's it going, sir?
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I've never done this before. So.
It's all good. I get nervous every single time I do one. This is episode 15 now, and I always get nervous about, is this going to go right? Like, is the thing going to work? And we're 15 for 15 now, so this is pretty cool.
Yeah, I like it. Hold on let me turn something off. All right.
Thanks for coming on. This is a long time coming for me. I've been a fan of your work for a long time.
Cool.
And then when the Be Well stuff came up, I figured we had to talk finally.
Yeah, very cool. You're getting me out of my comfort zone, making me enter the new millennium, right?
Well, listen, this whole quarantine experience got me out of my comfort zone. I like to pretend that, I have a day job, but when I do this thing, I like to pretend I'm a writer. So I'll interview people, we'll do long stories and whatever. But our site crashed like 6 or 7 months ago, and the people rebuilding it have just been super slow about doing it. So, and then I always was a concert photographer too. Can't do that now. So I said, well, what am I going to do to keep in touch with people and to really like promote stuff that I like? I said, so let's pretend I'm a talk show host now. So
I love it. Yeah, well, my comfort zone is like, I don't like having my picture taken. I don't like looking at my, and now I'm sitting here staring at myself for an hour. So
listen, there's a reason I'm a photographer and a writer, because
it's very cool.
So thanks for doing this. This is really, really cool.
Yeah.
It's a matter, when you've got a history as long as yours, sometimes I get a little weird about picking a starting point. I'll start with my introduction to Be Well. So we'll talk quite a bit about the new album. If I start blabbering on about stuff you don't really feel like talking about or whatever, especially because we've never met before, don't just tell me, yeah, move on, and I'll move on. It's all good.
I'm down to talk about whatever you want. So
I like that. So my introduction to Be Well was back in February at the Hot Water Music shows here in Boston.
Yeah.
And I had not done my homework, which is weird because normally I would, but I had not done my homework, so I was not familiar with Be Well yet, and I was floored when I saw you guys. Fiddlehead as well. Like, that was a really good night. I saw the Caution show because Caution's one of my favorite albums by anybody. But
it's one of the best records ever made, in my opinion, I think.
Well, did you know that at the time? Like, you had obviously known the Hot Water guys.
You know what? That was one of those weird things where, so when we made Flight in a Crash, it was like, it wasn't hostile, but it was hard. It was like I was really young. The guys had never worked with anybody that had like really kind of like pushed them the way that I push people.
Yeah. And, well, I've heard stories.
I'll say, there's the first time my wife ever met Chris Wallard, she came home from school and she was in grad school at the time, and she waved and was like, "Hey," and he says, "Your husband's a fucking asshole." And there we have it. 20.
That's awesome.
20 some years later, we're still friends. No, but so no, you know what was interesting about Caution was we did Flight and a Crash, which was fucking amazing, and I love those guys. And it was, I mean, it was like a it was just like, I think all of us left Flight and a Crash feeling like I definitely felt like, you know, I like there was more I could have brought to the table, and I felt like, you know, there were things they were frustrated with me about, and there was things I was frustrated with them about. And the
Sure.
cool thing about our relationship is we ended up just kind of sitting down and talking about it. And like they kind of were
How novel.
they were pretty honest with me about like things that they would like to be different in the future. And I kind of shared with them, like, you know, like, okay, so one of the highlights of my recording career was I remember saying to them, the lyrics are so important with your band, and leaving them for the last minute adds a lot of stress to the whole process.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Hot Water song without great lyrics isn't a Hot Water song, in my opinion. So,
Correct. Yeah.
so then it was really cool, and like I went down to Florida actually to like hang with them. Chuck like stir-fried squirrel, and we like worked on the pre-production there on their turf, which was cool because it was nice to get to meet their friends and start to see like who these guys are outside of the studio. But the best thing that happened is I kept saying to them, like, the lyrics, I want them to be done. It'll make it so we can focus on the shit you want to focus on. And then the first day of recording Caution, they drove up like overnight from Florida. And so they got there in the middle of the night when I was asleep. And it was at the time when my wife and I lived upstairs in the house and the bands lived downstairs, and there was a studio in the back. And I remember coming down in the morning to like wake them up. And I walked up, in the door going into the band apartment, Chris and Chuck had taped all the lyrics for the whole record to the door. So the first thing I saw, first day of that record, was the fucking best fucking lyrics you could ever imagine. And I just had this like feeling like, yeah, this is fucking awesome. This is going to be good.
Yeah.
And then it was like a really, really, really positive experience. Like the guys were in a good place and the songs were fucking great and they were written and done. And all we had to do was like have fun and track, and Chuck barbecued every night. And it was just like, it was fucking awesome, man. I mean, but those shows, I'm so like, one, I fucking love Fiddlehead. I love Hot Water. I love the Six Layers, like the best venue ever.
That's the best room in town. Yeah, for sure.
And I had just played there in October with my old band Milltown, played with Cave-In.
Oh, right. Yeah.
The funny thing is, I've never done that, playing the same room 2 nights in a row, and got to do it twice in like 4 months at the same venue, which is fucking sweet.
Those Cave-In shows went like that.
Yeah.
I was going to try to get into one of them. I had a conflict one of the nights, just like with Hot Water, but those shows went like that. And I don't have many strings in the Cave-In camp that I could pull, so I missed those.
They were good. It was fun. I mean, it's funny. I don't think so in Milltown, that band, I played guitar, and you know, I don't know that I'll ever play guitar again live like that. Like, it was kind of fun to be like, wow, this may never happen again. The crazy thing about the Milltown stuff is, I'm sure you're not that familiar with the band, but it was a band when I was living in Boston that I did with Jonah from Only Living Witness and Matt Squire, and just, you know, and it was like this whirlwind project where we signed to a major label after playing like less than 10 shows, got this huge deal, went in with this shithead producer who did a fucking miserable job, and essentially the band broke up because the record was not what it should have been, and we weren't, you know, ready, and, you know, a whole bunch of things. But it ended, I mean, I won't get into it now, but the band ended on a pretty, you know, wild note. And some of the guys in the band I literally had not seen or talked to in like 20 years. Wow. And that was the first time, the night before that show with Cave-In was the first time we had all been together in 20 years. And since some of us had even talked since the day we broke up. So
That's intense.
it was crazy. And it was crazy for me too, just to see Cave-In like that, because like, I mean, I recorded the Cave-In guys when they were like so young that Steve Brodsky's mom called me to make sure it was a safe neighborhood, and then
Yeah.
dropped him off and waited at IHOP while we recorded. So it was pretty cool.
Where was your studio up here?
Oh man, it was a bunch.
I'm in the Boston area.
So the first location was in Brighton, and that was I don't know. I don't know. It was in Brighton, and I was in the basement of a house. I mean, to call it a basement is a stretch. It was more of a cellar. And I lived in that house with 5 other roommates. And my bedroom, I just had like a mattress on the floor in the dining room.
Yeah.
And stuck the studio in the basement, and I worked at West Coast Video right down the street, and would come home at night and record bands. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. But then, the first couple months I was in Boston, I didn't record one band. And I thought like, oh God, this is going to be bad, because I had dropped out of high school and moved to Boston thinking that I was going to become a music producer. And I had no reason to think that was going to work. But the first couple months I didn't record one band. And then by the end of that year, I had recorded Texas Is the Reason, 108, Converge, Piebald, Cave-In, 10-Yard Fight, Bane. I mean,
did you record the Ducky Boys back then?
Oh,
too?
yeah. I recorded the Ducky Boys a bunch of times. Blood for Blood, The Trouble.
Yeah.
Yep. All that stuff. So, I mean, it was a wild, like, I literally was like, I made these flyers like, recorded salad days, $10 an hour. And put the flyers all over Boston for like 3 months. And I didn't get one single person that wanted to record. No. And then one day out of the blue, Rama Mayo from Big Wheel stopped by to see one of my roommates. And he was like, oh shit, you have a studio? I have a band, Cast Iron Hike, that needs a recorded demo.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I mean, what a fucking lucky break for me, because one, they were fucking good, right? So it's like making good bands sound great is not that hard. And and especially when you don't really know what you're doing. And two, those guys became like amazing friends. And actually, this guy Stink, who was their roadie, is now, I still talk to him like five times a day, and
wow,
it's just funny how like those chance encounters are so important. But then they came in, and then they were good, and then people started hearing that, and then literally, within a few weeks, I quit my job and I was recording pretty much full time from that point on.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big decision, to move from Baltimore to up here, drop out of school, and decide to become a record producer. My daughter's 12, and I said, "Do you have anything I should?" Oh, awesome!
Yeah,
we'll get into that. I know mine doesn't. She doesn't really play Minecraft, which to me I think is a good thing, because I would be overwhelmed by it. She told me to ask why you started producing records back then, as opposed to being a musician. I think, but why be a producer?
You know what's interesting is I had been playing in bands. I mean, I played my first show when I was in 8th grade. But I was in a band called Battery, and we played with Sick of It All.
Yeah.
And then I was in a band called Ashes. And in both bands, I was never the recording guy in the band. Like, I kind of took a back seat, like, oh, I'm just singing, I'm just playing guitar. And then I actually dropped out of high school to go on tour with Battery. And when we went to record the first Battery full length, we went and did it with a friend of mine who had like kind of done the same thing, like dropped out of school, got a bunch of credit cards, bought some shit, started recording bands. And I was just like, holy shit, this is fucking awesome. And what he's doing is kind of like what I do in the band. You know what I mean? Like
Okay, yeah.
work on
Yeah.
the arrangements, work, hey, that could be tighter, that could be whatever. And so going down to Atlanta and working with him was like transformational because I mean, just like anything, like when I was 14, I had no business singing in a band, but I saw people that looked a lot like me doing it and thought,
Right.
hey man, I might as well give this a shot. But
Right.
so I started like the Matt Squire, who's a wildly successful music producer now, was the drummer in Ashes, and he had a little 8-track in his basement, and we always recorded stuff. We bought some more shit, got a 16-track, and then I mean, I did not really anticipate the ride that I would go on with it.
Yeah.
But I just kind of like winged it, and it kind of worked out. And it took a long time before people realized I wasn't quite sure that I didn't know what I was doing.
My daughter was listening to me ask that question, so she, of course, has to come over. She makes a cameo every week, I think.
Hi.
I don't know if you heard, but he has a 12-year-old daughter, too. So
Cassie.
maybe you can play Minecraft together. So I said, you don't play a lot of Minecraft. Yeah, so that's a big risk to move, especially to move, whatever, 8 hours north.
Yeah.
And decide to get it to go there.
So the funny thing about that is everybody, Ashes, the band I was doing at the time, was doing quite well. And everybody in the band was, you know, going to college.
Yeah.
Like our singer went to Brown, and Matt Squire, our drummer, went to BU. And then it's my current wife, my girlfriend at the time, she went to Harvard. And so I literally dropped out of high school the same week that she got into Harvard. And
wow,
her parents were like, what the absolute fuck?
Yeah,
is
right.
Like, sorry to your daughter for cussing.
It's funny because as the father of a daughter, that's probably exactly what I would think.
Yeah, the funny thing about it is that I think that her parents, I mean, I was ambitious and like worked really hard. And I mean, I was booking the Ashes shows and tours when I was like 15 and hustled, you know.
Yeah.
I think that it freaked them out, but I do think that they got that I wasn't like just a total disaster, and that it was, you know, I had a bit of a plan. And Battery had just toured in Europe, so I think they kind of like were like not sure how they felt, but kind of like were willing to give it a ride for a little while. And then as things progressed and things started to get a little more serious, I just remember one day I was at her house, and her dad just said to me, "Hey, I really like you. Are you gonna make money?" like
Yeah.
Is this a thing that you're just like, are you just like running around being like a fuck up, or
Right?
And I mean, honestly, like,
valid question in hindsight, valid question.
And honestly, like, I really liked him, and I wanted to show him that I was like good enough. I think it was like I was motivated by that, and I didn't take offense to it. And I also liked that he was like straightforward about it, because it was, you know. So I mean, but the whole music thing happened really fast once it started happening. I mean, the crazy thing was I moved to Boston with like really no plan, and, you know, sleeping on a mattress on the floor in a dining room of this house, working at a video store. And literally within like a year of that time, Battery signed to Revelation, Milltown signed to Warner Brothers. I was producing all these records, and like happening for real, and was pretty wild.
And Boston can be kind of an insular place, and it's not necessarily all that welcoming to people from outside of here, unless you have connections coming in. So especially to do that, and I say that as somebody who's from around here, so especially to be able to do that is more than just a little bit impressive.
Yeah, I mean, and it was cool. And Boston had just like such a vibrant music scene, and like there were shows every night and people were super creative. And also like, I don't know, like just, I mean, Cave and Piebald, Converge.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I don't want to say I lucked out, but I kind of lucked out with like these rad, incredibly talented, you know,
Yeah.
genre defining musicians
Right.
coming to my little cellar for $10 an hour.
Right.
The cool thing about it is like, I mean, if you think about what makes music so special is the fact that like I'm still really close with a ton of those people. I mean, like Aaron Dahlbeck from Converge Spain
Right.
and Be Well, and we talk every day. And I
Yeah.
literally met him the day after my first date with my wife. So it's like,
Really?
yeah, like I had my first date with my wife, and then I got on a train and Ashes played at the Middle East with Lifetime, and I met Aaron Dahlbeck that day. So it's like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's like we go way back.
And he lives down there now. He lives in Maryland now, right?
Well,
Is that correct?
He just moved to Pennsylvania, but he's about an hour from me. He was in Maryland.
Oh, okay.
His wife is a midwife, and it's awesome having him here. It's great. You know, it's like everybody in the, like most of the dudes in the band, we just go so far back, and it's like just makes it comfortable and easy.
So how did the Be Well thing start? I mean, I know you've known the guys for a long time through either recording their projects or being in their projects, but how did the idea to sort of coalesce as a group come together?
Okay, let's see. I mean, the short version is, I didn't ever think that I would ever make music of my own ever again. I just kind of like I was just telling you about like the, you know, the studio and Battery and Milltown and all that. Well, all of that basically over the course of like 3 months, Battery broke up, Milltown broke up, and my business partners that I had in the studio fucked me over, and I ended up moving back to DC all in the course of like 3 months. And
so like as quickly as it built up, it all kind of
crap. And then I came back to DC, and I was going to go into business with a friend of mine, and then he kind of fucked me over. And so I ended up just like going back to basics, rented a house again.
Yeah.
With my wife and my friend John, set up the control room in the dining room, and the drums went in the basement, and just started grinding, you know? And then I had like a magical year. Like it was like the 8 months that I was in that house, I did, oh my gosh, I did the first Darkest Hour record. I did the first Movielife record, Cave in Jupiter, Mile Marker, Drowning Man. I mean, so much cool shit in such a short period.
That Cave in Jupiter record is so good.
Yeah.
That was the album that really, I had a roommate when I was at Northeastern who was really into Converge and Cave In. This is like 98, 99. So when they were kind of early, and I liked Cave In more and he liked Converge more, but he introduced me to those. And then that Jupiter album came out. I was like, whoa, this is next level.
Yeah. Well, so
then Antenna came out.
We actually tracked the basics for that up at a place called the Outpost in Stoughton. And I'll tell you something about that record is they tracked the music for that entirely live. Everything live. There's like, I think there's one acoustic overdub on the whole record. Everything else, all those effects, everything they did live. Like I've never seen anything like it in my entire life.
Wow.
27 years of recording. I've never seen a band go and be that fucking ready. I mean, like all the pedals and everything. I mean, it was like mind blowing. And we didn't punch anything. I think we had like 4 days to track the basics, and I think we did it in like 2 days. And then we went back to DC and we tracked all the vocals. It's all tape, and I don't think there are even any like vocal harmonies or like doubles or anything. I think it's like as stripped down. It's like the
that's crazy,
most stripped down record you'll ever hear. Yeah,
that's crazy.
they're fucking awesome. They're so talented.
I
It's insane.
I remember listening years ago. My boss at the time, who was my mom's age, uh, I was listening to either Jupiter or Antenna. I don't remember which one in my office, and I work in like substance abuse counseling and stuff like that. And so my boss just sat down at my desk and she says, "Who are you listening to?" And I thought she was just being a weirdo. I said, "Oh, there's a band called Cave In. They're actually from around here." She said, "Yeah, Adam McGrath plays in that band."
Oh
And I
my
said,
God.
"How the hell would you know that, Michelle?" She's like, "His mom's my best friend."
Oh my God.
I was like, "Oh my God. How do you," like, she listens to, like, Stephen Stills is about her knowledge of music.
Right.
And she knew Cave In. She's like, "Oh, I've known him since he was in diapers." Da, da, da. I was like, "That's wild."
I love that. I don't know, like those guys to like go from like recording them and having Steve's mom pick them up to going to like where they've gone in their career and how many.
Yeah.
It's just, it's like, it's really special for me to be able to see that. And they're such good guys. And like, they really are like, I mean, like Steve is like a legitimate genius in my opinion. Like, and
Yeah.
they just were doing things that nobody was doing way before everybody else caught on. And
Right.
even Jupiter, I just remember how unafraid they were to make that record.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
coming off of Until Your Heart Stops, that was so fucking big, to
Right.
like totally fearlessly go and make this radically different record and not even blink about what the consequences might be is so inspiring, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, I moved back to DC. Shit was like, you know, I was rebuilding and I ended up buying a house and built a studio behind it. And then brings us back to Hot Water Music. Like they were playing, I was building the studio and they were playing down the street. And I had known those guys because Ashes had played with them. And they just stopped by and they were like, "Oh, this is fucking rad. And let's do our record here." And I think I was like 22 at the time.
Wow.
And I'll never forget, Brett Gurwitz came out for like a week. It was like a legendary music producer sitting out in the back of the room while we're tracking that record. And I'm like, holy fuck, this is like trial by fire, right?
Yeah, right.
But
no pressure.
But yeah, Hot Water was cool because that was like I had recorded at that point a lot of bands that had done well and had been on labels, but Hot Water was the first band that was like signed to a big label, had plenty of money to record with whoever the fuck they wanted to record with, and we're like, let's do it with Brian. You know what I mean? It wasn't like he's our buddy that lives down the street or he's who can give us 3 weeks for whatever it is. It was like, no, this feels good. Let's do this. And the other thing that's so cool about all of it is like those guys are like some of the best human beings you'll ever meet.
Oh, absolutely.
And for me to like, you know, not only get to help them make those records, but to get to like have that much time with such incredible people was, you know. And then, you know, we were talking about Caution before, and I think about that record all the time when I'm writing, because that's a fucking, the lyrics are so deep. And I remember feeling like when we finished Caution, like these lyrics are so fucking real that I feel closer to these guys. Like, you know, like, I don't know, like, you know, things that I'm like, oh, Chris is kind of like, can be a moody motherfucker sometimes. And then you like listen to the song. And you're like, oh, I fucking get it. Like, this is what's going on. You know, like it made these people that I already felt close to and already love even more human and like even more bonded, which I mean is how it should be, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So then the Be Well thing, I want to keep track of
Oh
time
yeah,
too,
yeah,
because
yeah.
we're having a really good conversation, but I want to make sure that we actually touch on like
Sure.
the new music, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So the Be Well
So
thing, yeah. How did
so
that come back?
basically, I had a wild arc, and I basically decided in '99 when Battery and Milltown broke up that I wanted to just focus on producing, and I did.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I mean, and it was amazing, and it was like, you know, I would co-write with bands sometimes. I would help with arrangements. I would produce, and I felt like my creative, you know, itches were being scratched. and
yeah,
um and I really thought that I would never play again. And not because I didn't love playing, but just because I was like Brian McTernan, the producer.
right.
And then I think probably like around when my daughter was born, the like lifestyle of producing records and having like the hours, this kind of stress, the like, I don't know, like, you know, we're just talking about like Cave In and Hot Water Music coming in and being like fucking ready.
Yeah,
I think with the like onset of like streaming music and like the people's attention span becoming so much shorter and people needing new records faster and faster and faster, bands started
yeah,
coming into the studio like way less prepared. And I'm like writing people's songs, playing on people's records, doing a bunch of shit that like I just felt like more of a babysitter in some ways. Um,
yeah,
the budgets got really tight, and I had like a huge building with a lot of overhead. And I just, around 2013, I decided that like I needed a break. And I actually sold the building that the studio was in and stopped making records even for a while. And
yeah.
I
Did you sell all the stuff with it, or
I
you just
didn't.
sold
I
it?
didn't.
Like you
I didn't.
kept your
I
gear?
didn't sell the gear. I sold. I sold the physical building,
Yeah,
and I took a job. Like, so, like, side story is that I always built all my own studios. Like, you know,
yeah,
like my wife and I, when we were 19, like hanging drywall up and like waiting for 108 to show up to start tracking the record. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, yeah,
but I love architecture and I love construction and I love things like that. So I kind of thought like, you know, I've done this for 20 some years. I'm going to try something new. And I took a job as project manager for a construction company.
right.
And yeah. And like with, you know, I kind of just did it like how I always did shit and like hustled and worked hard. And within 6 months, I was the COO and running the company.
Wow.
And that sounds kind of cool, except that it kind of sucked. And I worked with pretty miserable people, and the job
Yeah,
didn't mean anything to me. And more than anything, I think like I was going from like job to job to job all day. And like after having like kind of a lifetime of being around all these like amazing people, I was
yeah,
like totally alone with my thoughts and myself and in a way that I had never been. And
yeah,
like a lot of the, like when I was a kid pre-Boston, I'd had like a lot of, you know, gotten kicked out of school and was like in a mental hospital for a period of time and had really traumatic home life. And I think all of a sudden, like when I had nowhere to hide, you know, I couldn't hide in the records and other people's art anymore. I became like morbidly depressed, like
mm,
almost not functional. And like, you know, just I just like I couldn't process what I was feeling. So instead I
yeah,
just kind of numbed myself to the world. And I would come home at night and drink and tune out everything. And I don't think I realized like how fucked up I was until we ended up um we ended up I had sung in this band Battery, and we had gotten an offer to go to Europe to do a handful of shows. And we one morning I woke up and the guitar player and battery had just ran. We hadn't even talked about writing new music, but
Yeah.
I woke up to an email of a song idea. And I literally, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning before I went to work. I literally sat down for the first time in like 20 years and like wrote the song in like 5 minutes.
Wow.
And I felt like something inside of me like woke up maybe a little bit. And all of a sudden just like decided to do the song, decided to do the tour. All of a sudden I had a reason to be like talking to people, and I had things to look forward to and art to look at, and
Yeah.
shit that like felt like it mattered,
Yeah.
and I don't know, I just started writing. I just said to myself, you know what, I don't know if this is going to be battery, I don't know if it's going to be whatever the fuck it is, but like I never got into like playing music or writing music to like have it be anything except whatever the fuck it was. And
Right.
I just, every morning I would get up and before my daughter got up, I would sit and I would pick up the guitar, write a riff, write lyrics, do something. And I just started doing that. And all of a sudden it was like, wow, I feel better. I feel happier. I feel more connected to the world. And, but I also realized that I fucking hated my job and I hated where I was in my life. And we went on the battery tour. It went amazing. But I also realized at the end of it, like I kind of wanted it to be battery when I was writing, because that would have just been easy. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Right. But it wasn't battery. And it was like, I mean, honestly, like my goal when I started writing the Be Well stuff was just to have something where we could play cool small shows and I had something to like be thinking about that wasn't fucking roofs or whatever the fuck I was thinking about at the time. But an interesting thing happened when I started writing was that, I mean, my wife said to me, like, you seem like a different person. Like, like instead of hiding from all this shit and burying it, I was like embracing it and like putting it out there, and like so fucking cool. Like my daughter, like whatever happens to me when I'm doing music stuff, like whatever my energy is, she loves to just like even like just come in the room and sit on the floor, and even if she has headphones on, just be around me. I think like I'm a fucking musician. Like it's like I've been going to shows since I was 10 years old, and like what made me think I could give up something so wonderful and like be just fine. You know what I mean? So anyway.
Well, and especially to do it under positive pretenses. I mean, you wanted to sort of be around more and not have bands come in and out and sort of focus on day job and thus family, except that it had the opposite effect.
Right. Exactly. Right. So what ended up happening is I got back from tour and my wife was like, you need to quit this job and you need to just do music again. Like, we'll figure it out. Like, I mean, I was like, it was a bad place that I was in. And so I ended up, I mean, I didn't quit my job to do Be Well. I quit my job to start making music again, just in general. And so I did that. I quit. They were fucking assholes about it. And long story short, the thing that was so fucked up about it is like my wife, it was funny because you have, like we've been together for 27 years and you have like, sometimes you have those moments where you're like, this is why we're together. And like when she sat down and said like, I don't care what we have to do to make this work for you to be able to do music again and have it be okay, but we'll figure it out. And I did that. And then like,
because she wants you to be around. Like she saw how dark you were getting, obviously, and she wants you to be around.
So 3 months after we make that like big family decision, she gets fired from her job. Or she is a psychologist and she ran the methadone clinic at the VA hospital in Baltimore. And
Yeah.
she did something to advocate for a patient that fucking God bless her for doing.
Yeah.
And they
I
tried to,
should say I'm familiar with the story a little bit tangentially.
yeah. So anyway, she ended up, they tried to fire her. She's now testified in
Right.
front of Congress like 3 times, and
Yeah.
it's still totally unresolved. So we're
Yeah.
kind of in like this
Right.
crazy limbo right now. But
Right.
so anyway, back to Be Well. Like, I got back. Mike Schreibaum, who's our guitar player, was also in Battery, and um, he was like definitely the person that like never let me give up. Like a million times I was like, this isn't gonna work. This is too hard. Like finding the thing is like finding people that play on the level that like I hear it in my head after
Yeah.
spending
Right.
25 years working with the most incredible people. It's like not
Right.
the easiest thing to find.
Yeah.
And honestly, literally, like, you would think like, oh, we've been in all these bands, we've done all these things, it would be easy. If I told you the amount of people I sent demos to that never even listened to them, it would blow your mind.
Really?
Yeah. And but then out of the blue one day, I'm like, Mike and I we were jamming with this one drummer that was sick, but then he moved to California. And then out of the blue one day, one of my neighbors, who was like an old hardcore kid that used to book all the shows in DC, was like, oh, did you see that Aaron Dahlbeck moved to Maryland? And I was like, wait,
Yeah.
what? And
Yeah.
I told Mike sent him the demos that day, and Aaron wrote us right back, was like, dude, I fucking love this. I'm in.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, and then I was like, all right, I'm not fucking crazy. Mike and Aaron, who I love and respect,
Yeah.
not
Right.
only like it, but like want to do it, want to
do it.
and
Yeah.
want to, invest themselves. So, so then from there, Mike played it for Peter, who's our other guitar player. They're in a band called Zealot together, and then Peter loved it, and then Peter played it for Shane, who's our drummer.
Yeah.
And those dudes are fucking rad people, and they're awesome musicians, and they're just like an absolute pleasure to be around. And there we have it. We have Be Well. So it's it was, and then it's going awesome. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah. Right. And it's going really well. Like,
yeah.
all the feedback that I read and the people that I know that know the band are like, this is really good. Like,
Yeah.
This is really good.
I did an interview yesterday, and the guy literally was like, yeah, I mean, I thought it would be okay, but it's actually good. I'm like, well, no, I mean, I'm lucky in that I've continued to be around some of like the most incredible musicians that have ever existed, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So it does keep you sharp and somewhat fresh. It's not like we're like, trying to jump, and everybody in the band has continued to play music. So it's not like, it's like, although it's a new band, it's like, it's not like we're coming out of retirement. Like everybody's like still.
It's not a bunch of old dudes that were just sitting around for 15 years.
Yeah. And the other thing is like, we kind of made a conscious decision to like, I mean, like, I don't know. I think the launch of Be Well, had we been like done straight old school hardcore and sung about the scene and PMA, it might have been an easier, like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is the new shit. But instead, we tried to make it, I don't know, I don't want to, real for where we are in life right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not like we're not trying to get back to anything. It's not a throwback band. It's not like we're not, it would be so weird for me to be like singing about the pit and the kids and,
Right.
So
right.
Really the only thing that I know how to do is be myself. And I mean, it's been like really touching to have so many people reach out and be like, dude, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Honestly, the thing that's the coolest for me is a lot of the shit that I'm talking about in the songs, I've never really even talked to like anybody about.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I definitely had like a feeling, especially with like my band clients, because like I hate calling them clients, but the bands I worked with, you know,
Yeah.
like there's like my job in the studio was to be like the fearless leader of and
Yeah.
and I think that like because I was wanted to kind of, you know, maintain that role, often I didn't share things that were actually going on with me with people. And
Yeah.
I was afraid that like this side of me that it's like I'm writing about with Be Well would come out and people would feel like be rejecting or be like, who the fuck is that? I mean, but it's been
Yeah.
like the total fucking opposite, where I feel like the conversations I've had with like bands I've worked with and people I've known my whole life, one, they're like, of course we fucking knew. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
Like, you don't have to say it. Like,
Right.
we've been friends forever. And two, they're like, dude, I felt the exact same way. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and that's the thing about like depression and mental health and some, like the shit I'm talking about isn't like, the shit that has like haunted me through my life is not like crazy or super dark. I mean, most of it is like unremarkable shit that like self-defeating thoughts that because I never talked about them or shared them with people, I just let them grow. And,
Right.
you know, self-doubt and things like that. And like, I think that like a lot of people are drawn to wanting to do music with their life because they have those feelings. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure what made me think that people wouldn't understand or wouldn't care, but it's been like, it's been like, I think one of the best things about doing the band is really like, I feel like the people I love the most know me better
Oh,
through
sure.
through doing this. If that makes sense.
There, there are there are a few songs in particular that I kind of had to stop myself and go, whoa, like that resonated sometimes a little too close, like you
Right.
flew a little too close to the sun on that one. And there's a couple of times your daughter plays a big part in some of the songs, and you're sort of talking to her as much as to the listener.
Right.
I was thinking to myself earlier today, as I was reading along with the lyrics, which is an old-fashioned thing I like to do. Uh,
Yeah.
but is that it's one thing to write lyrics like that if you're just writing in a journal at your house and putting it by the side of your bed or whatever. It's another thing to record music like that, but it's an even bigger thing, I think, to have the sort of faith in yourself, but the faith in other people to put the music out and let other people hear it and let and play those songs and those words in front of people.
Right.
That's not an easy task
Well,
because you're talking. I mean,
so
each song has like these moments of light and hope that creep into them,
right.
and some otherwise heavy uh, shit going on.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you say that because the title track of the record, The Weight and the Cost, it's a pretty awesome story, but like we played our second show and Dan from Equal Vision came out, and like I everybody in the band has like an incredible history with Equal Vision. They were like one of the first labels to ever hire me, and then
Yeah,
Fairweather and Bane and Converge, and then Mike Schreibaum's
yeah,
been friends with them forever as well. So Dan came to the second show, and we like decided that we were going to do the record with them, which is amazing. And I literally, it was funny because I got home from that show and I was so like, I love Dan so much. And I was so inspired that like he loved it. And I like literally got home from Philadelphia, sat down, picked up the guitar and wrote 3 songs in like
wow,
half an hour. And I
wow,
called our drummer and I was like, I got to come to Richmond. I have these songs. They need to be on the record.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I get in the car. Mike Schreibaum and I are driving to Richmond. And Dan Sanchoff from Equal Vision calls me, and he was like, we like shit talk for a minute and blah blah blah, and then he said to me, "Hey man, like all business and all bullshit aside, like, are you okay? Like, I'm listening to these songs, and like I love you, and I just want to make sure you're okay."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, I'm okay. Like I'm you know, it's been a tough couple of years, but like I'm doing well." And he then said to me, like, "Man, it was just really like heavy to see you play these songs, and then also to see your daughter see you playing these songs." And like, he didn't say like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Or, but I mean, it was, you know, that is something that like I have to think about. You know what I mean? Like, what she's gonna think. And anyway, like I got off the phone with him and I thought about it a ton, and I ended up coming home and sitting down, and like literally like the second I walked in the door, I wrote the song "The Weight and the Cost" about like that feeling of like, one, like I have to make this decision. Like, it's as hard as it is for her to maybe hear this stuff about me that like I'm feeling inside. I also, if she doesn't know that it exists, she doesn't know me. You know?
Right.
And like, if she doesn't know like why I was so fucked up for the last couple of years, how she's never gonna, like, she's gonna make her own assumptions about that, and possibly blame herself, or you know, things of that nature. And so essentially, like, because I mean, part of it is like making a commitment to trying to get better, honestly was a lot harder than just being totally numb. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Like forcing myself to like face the things about myself that I feared the most. And like, me being like, I mean, the fact that I'm like staring at my phone and talking to you, I mean, people that know me, I don't even like having my picture. I mean, I am so outside of my comfort zone doing all of it. I spent my whole life trying to be like in the background, and but honestly, like, I just couldn't live like that. I couldn't live like that. And the other thing is like, I don't want to be ashamed of who I am. Like, I ended up in the fucked up place that I was because I buried things about myself and lived in shame for so long. And like, if even if it's hard for her to process, it's who I am. And so anyway, that's
part of the reason that it means a lot that we're having this conversation. Is I went through a similar thing probably a few years before you did, and I know that it gets, and even when you decide to actually do things to help yourself get better, it tends to get a lot worse. Like from the time you make that decision to the time you actually start making progress, the bottom kind of falls out on you there. And I get it. But then also knowing that you have this this little girl as kind of the guiding light, and part of the reason that is worth like moving on and getting better is like your mini reflection staring back at you. And because, and I was just having this conversation with my daughter, I think yesterday, that sometimes when you're a parent, one of the hardest things you can do is identify your personal traits that you maybe aren't so proud of, but in your kid. So when you start to see some of the behaviors and some of the thought patterns, you go, shit, that's the stuff that was hard for me. And so I want to make sure she doesn't, that she has the tools at her disposal to be able to battle that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, for me as a parent, it's like, I have worried less about like passing on traits that are like, you know, genetic traits per se. That's like, I'm not that worried about that. I have much more worried about like literally like my only my only like dream for her, my daughter, in life is that she can like grow up and be whoever the fuck she is, and not like
Yeah.
not feel like she has to hide herself from the world in any way.
Right.
Like I think about like when I was 14, my parents hospitalized me, and um I was fucked up. So I mean, I get why it happened, but I think
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
that time, um, mental health stuff was not mainstream to talk about it, and
Right. Right.
they, my parents didn't tell anyone, so I literally just
Yeah.
disappeared, and I'm gone.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
my, I didn't have any visitors in the hospital. I was there for a month, and when I got out, I was also ashamed of it. And so they were ashamed of it. I was ashamed of it. Most of my friends, most of the people in my life, like never really knew that that even happened. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like, I carried that shit around with me. I mean, I carry it around with me now. And my poor mom carries it around with, I mean, if it comes up, she just breaks down and starts crying. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
it's awful. And then you realize like how fucked up it is to like feel shame about things that are like integral to who you are as a person. Like I like a lot of the shit that I has like been hard for me in my life, I had no control over. Like, why the fuck do I feel shame about
Yeah. Right. Right.
having been, born? Like my mom's had depression her whole life. My dad has like severe obsessive compulsive disorder. I grew
Yeah.
up in a house with a ton of fighting and screaming and chaos. Like, my fucking went on tour in Europe. I dropped out of high school, went on tour for a month, came home, and my dad didn't even know I was gone. And somehow I spent my whole life blaming myself for that,
Right.
and
Right. Right.
feeling shame about things that were like way the fuck beyond my control. And like, I think about like how many people I know that like I grew up with that I now know are gay or were raped or were abused or were
Yeah.
depressed. And I felt close to these people, and they never felt comfortable even telling me any of that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you just look at that little circle and think of how many people are carrying around this bullshit and
Right.
feeling like the same shit that I've been feeling. And like, how long can that go on? And what is
Right.
the cost of that? I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of like, I don't know, it's, it's pretty wild.
It is, but it's what makes Be Well, and I can't wait for people to hear it because I know people have heard a couple of songs, and if they've seen you, they've heard a lot of them. But I can't wait for people to put it on their headphones and sit down with it,
Yeah.
and it's gonna shake some people, but in a good way, I
Yeah.
think. But
Well,
it's one of those like you're not alone.
even me sometimes, I mean, this sounds like it's weird because it's like, you, I don't know if it's weird to say like I'm proud of myself, but like this was maybe one of the hardest decisions I ever made, to put myself
Yeah,
out there in this way.
yeah,
And
yeah,
like, I mean, it's weird because it's like, on one hand, is this kind of a dark record, but for me, it's not a dark record. Like for me, it's
yeah,
like it is like a really transparent snapshot of like my humanity in a
yeah, yeah,
way.
yeah,
And like it definitely at times I'll put it on and it will just catch me like, and I feel like overwhelmed with emotion. And I mean, to me, what a fucking treat to be able to have that experience. I mean, like,
right,
I don't know, like for me, music, it's an incredible statement about the punk and hardcore community that like it's given me the ability to share something in this way that I wouldn't even feel comfortable like telling someone sitting right
Yeah.
next to me, you know?
This is going to cut us off in 22 seconds.
Okay.
Because we've made it to an hour. Do you mind holding on? We can start over again if I save this.
Sure. It's up to you.
Okay.
No problem.
All right. Hang on a minute. Let me save this one and then we'll come back.
Okay.
Even if it's just to say goodbye officially.
Sure.
Hang on a second.
Okay.
All right. Episode 15, part 2. Thanks if anybody hung on. I totally lost track of time. I try to be more professional than that, but, you know, that was a good conversation. Hi, Jared. We'll wait for Brian to come back on. That saved correctly, so here we go. Says we're connecting. It says we're connecting. Let me move my phone. Hey, Signal Disrupt. Yeah, I'm one of the faces behind the site. Not the only one. That's for sure. But thank you if you've actually read the site. Let's go. You know what? Let me move over to the other side because maybe there's a connection issue on my end. There we go. Let me close that off. There we go.
I am back.
Hey, me too. Sorry about that. Yeah, I totally lost track of time. I didn't realize, and then the little warning light came on. It said, you have 28 seconds to go. I was like, shit. So thanks for holding on.
Yeah.
Even, like I said, even if it's just to wrap up officially, but that was a really awesome conversation.
Yeah. So I guess the thing I would say about the record is that for all of the like stuff that's heavy about it, it's also like it's a super like fun record.
Yeah.
Super high energy, super melodic, super like you know, it's like I don't know, it feels like an album to me. It feels like a complete thought. And like the thing that was so cool for me about making it is that in all of the like when Ashes and Battery would record back in the day, we would record like over the course of like 2 or 3 days. And then I spent my whole life making records with all these bands that were like these pieces of art. And I've never had a record of my own that's like that.
That was like, yeah.
And so it was really cool to get to do that, to really like, you know, do it the way that I would do it with another band, like write the songs and demo the songs and work on them. And, you know, so it's you know, it's fucking treat. And then honestly, like when we started doing it, I was just thinking it would be fucking rad to be able to play at, you won't know this, but the Wind Up Space, which is like kind of like O'Brien's in Boston.
Okay.
Just to be able to like play and have things on my calendar that to look forward to. Yeah. I never in a fucking million years thought it would go the way that it's gone or be received. I mean, not one person in this band was like, oh, let's get big, or you know what I mean? Like the motivation 100% was let's make music that we love with people we love and have fun. And like it's just so fucking cool to, you know, I don't know. It's hard to explain like how much it means to me, like how much people care. I mean, it's really fucking cool.
There's video, I think, of that. You were talking before about that second show that you did. Equal Visions. There's video of that floating around. I think it's the second show because I think you're saying it. And I think Toby maybe from H2O is on the side of the stage.
Yeah.
And I was watching, I went back to it a little bit earlier today. I said, wow, this band sounds big and tight for their second show. I mean, I
Yeah.
know you guys are all professionals, but still, that's only the second show you played together.
Yeah.
But it sounded like your sound is huge,
Yeah.
and the band was really tight.
Yeah.
Technical issues aside, but
Yeah. Technical issue. You know what? The funny thing about that show is I was still like the vocals in this band are definitely like I'm pushing myself in a way that I hadn't before. Like in Battery was like just kind of screaming. Yeah. And at first I was like, just not sure. I mean, like you have to keep in mind that we just came back from a Battery tour when we played that show, right, where we're like playing and everybody knows every word and so stage diving, right, and so kind of getting into the fishbowl of like, hey, we're playing and nobody's ever even fucking heard us.
Yeah, right.
Was scary. And like at that show, I think I was still like mainly using a mic stand because I think I was just being kind of wimpy. But it is fucking rad how good the dudes are. Like to get up there and know that like the dudes that are like you're playing with are so amazingly capable it helps, you know?
Yeah.
It
yeah.
helps a lot.
It yeah. Like I said before, I can't wait for people to hear it because it's a really, really good record. So it's a really, really great record.
There's a new song on Thursday. On Thursday. And then the full record is at the end of August.
It's the 21st or something. Is that right? Off the top of my head?
I think it's August 21st, yeah. And then...
I can't wait for the pre-order to show up. There's some really cool stuff in the merch bundle, too. You got to do like a merch bundle.
I know. It's crazy with like a coffee mug.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. And then the cool thing, I'm excited. One of the things, it's funny because you said like you're satin red the lyrics. So my kind of like quarantine project is I have made lyric videos for every song on the record. Because to me, lyrics are so important.
Oh, absolutely.
And I just feel like, you know, like I don't want people to have to like Google it and read it off this like generic webpage. Like, so I went to like, my wife took all the photos on the record, which is super cool.
Oh, wow.
And now I can't like get annoyed when she wants to stop every 2 minutes when we're going places. But I went to like all the places where all the photos on the record are taken and like shot the videos there. And
oh, wow.
It was so fun to like, I mean, like just, I don't know, like it was just a fun project. And then I just wanted it to all like the day the record comes out, all of the lyric videos for the whole record will come out, like almost like a digital lyric sheet.
Okay, that's awesome.
I think will be cool. And I mean, I figure if I'm gonna put myself out there and in that way, I want people to be able to know what I'm saying, right?
Absolutely. And like I said, there are moments of at least hope, if not necessarily brightness. There are moments of at least hope on every song. And that was actually one of the things that I did the most recent listen is like there are running themes through each of the songs, but there are moments of like, God, I hope I can pull myself out of this tailspin, basically. And if that's as bright as it gets, that's as bright as it gets. But there's moments of hope on every song. So it's not just beating you down with, boy, life was fucked up. It was like, I need to get better. I mean,
the interesting thing about the record is like the songs got more hopeful as it went along.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And part of it is like I feel like it is a balance of like pain and hope, as is life. You know what I mean? Like, like,
right.
And it's like there is something for me personally, like being able to like accept that there are aspects of myself that may I may always have some of
Yeah.
this. And being able to accept that is a hopeful feeling. I mean, that I know that's like, I am okay with that. Like, it's like, I'm not gonna ever just be this like perfect person that's always happy and
Yeah.
always does the right thing and always, like, I'm still gonna fuck things up. I'm still gonna like, and like a huge part of the way that I got myself into the fucked up situation that I got myself into was trying to be this like regular ass person,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
getting this job that meant nothing to me,
Right.
taking this promotion that I should have never taken. Like, I mean, the fucking reality is like, I'm a fucking hardcore kid and like, I've
Right.
had fucking mental health issues, and so is everybody in my family, and so does almost every fucking person I love in the world. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
why can I love all these other people like for exactly who they are, but I can't love myself for the same reasons? And kind of getting to the place where I can like even say that out loud is just,
Yeah.
it's incredible for me. And like, it is hopeful. And it's like, it is like saying things like, I want to be able to love myself the way the people around me love me. That
Right.
might be a sad thought, but like, without that thought as a step towards something else, like, I'm never going to get where I need
Yeah. Yeah.
to be to actually live like a fulfilled life. So
The sad thought is that you is not loving yourself like that, but there is, like you said, there's that, the yin to that yang is there are people who do love you like that. There's this threshold you can try to pull yourself up to.
right. And like, if I can't accept, if I can't admit to myself that
Yeah.
I'm not there, that I'm don't, that like the things that I feel about myself are, one, not rational. I mean, that's the thing that's so hard about it. And I think that people that suffer from depression know this, is that I know it's not fucking rational. I know that. Like,
Yeah.
I have had more success in my life than I.
We cut out for just a second.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've had more success than I ever could have dreamt of ever having.
Yeah.
And like, I have been surrounded by people that I think are legitimately some of the most incredible human beings to ever exist and the most talented people ever. And they look to me for guidance and
Yeah.
advice. Yet somehow I
Yeah.
spent my whole life feeling like a failure who's constantly letting people down.
Yeah.
I
Right.
know that's not fucking rational. I mean, I'm not
Right.
stupid, but it doesn't change the fact that has been lingering inside of me my
Yeah.
whole life. And the problem is, when you have those feelings and you don't ever share them, they just grow and they become corrosive and they eat away at the things that are stable in your life. And
Right.
one day you wake up somewhere you never thought you would be. And like, luckily I have like a support network of like my brother and my wife and my bandmates and my friends who like never gave up on me the
Yeah.
way I had given up on myself. And being able to like acknowledge those things and accept those things is like, I mean, to me it's hopeful. To me it's positive. Like, I know it's not like a cheerful, snappy pop record, but
Thank God.
I honestly think back and I look at like for me when I was a kid, to like what drew me to hardcore music in particular was how real it was and like
Mhm.
how relatable it was. And like, especially growing up in DC, like Rites of Spring and Embrace and 7 Seconds was another early band for me. But like, I always felt like the best music gives you words for the things that you feel but you can't express,
Yeah. 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 Right. Yeah.
and like, I mean, you know, I hope that this record is that for some people. You know what I mean? I hope that some 16-year-old kid listens to it and sees their father in a different way. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I hope that some parent listens to it and says, you know what? Like, fuck, man. You know, like the one of the things is like about being a parent is like, it doesn't mean you stop experiencing your own pain. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
You don't stop experiencing your own disappointment. You don't. And like, I mean, I look at like how much I hated my dad when I was a kid. And now I look back and think like, holy fuck, like,
Yeah.
he gave up so much for us. And I never quite understood how much pain I put them through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Getting
Yeah.
arrested and getting kicked out of school and all of this shit. And so, I mean, I hope that it's a record that people end up being able to relate to and find meaning in, you know?
Well, I'm not a 16-year-old kid finding meaning. I'm a 40-year-old guy, and it resonated pretty well with me. That's
I
for sure.
appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Thanks so much for doing this. I know I've
Yeah,
kept you
this was really
longer
fun.
than I planned to, but this
No,
was
it's great.
really a pleasure for me.
Yeah, so awesome. Well, thank you so much. And next time I'm in Boston, we'll hang out.
Can't wait.
I'll
Thanks
bring
so
my
much for
daughter
doing
and the kids can play Minecraft.
That'd be awesome, actually.
All
or
right.
Pokemon. We're a Pokemon.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Brian. It's been a
Okay,
pleasure.
bye. Bye.